I am joined now by a big Charlotte FC. If you watch Charlotte FC, you know who this is. You've heard her voice. Jessica Charman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. And as we were just chatting off air, delighted that I finally saw Charlotte on the schedule. Every time I get a text, I'm like, is it a Charlotte game? It hadn't been. And finally, it's a Charlotte FC game.
I was going to say, if you've been watching Charlotte FC for the last few years, your voice has essentially been equal to some of the greatest moments in the club's history, short history, but some of the greatest moments from club history. Obviously, we are seeing a resurgence of sorts for the club right now. You've been there. You've watched it firsthand. What is going so right for them so far?
They're just finding a way to win. Honestly, I think it's so fascinating. We had an opportunity to talk to head coach Dean Smith today, and he was very transparent. They're not necessarily playing their most beautiful soccer. They're not necessarily connecting in the way that they would like to, but what they're doing is being effective. Anytime you're able to win 7 games consecutively, something is clicking. I think they're difficult to beat at the moment. And what I've been most impressed with is when you look at the players that they've lost in this run of play, obviously Patrick Agyemang goes off to Europe. Pep Biel is injured. They've still found a way with the players that they have on their roster to get the things done. And they've gone back a little bit to the success they had last season when they were so defensively sound. And maybe I'm biased coming as a former goalkeeper, but I think everything starts with a strong defense when it comes to success.
Well, and to your point, I think if you look at the results in the first half of the season versus where we are now, Christian Kalina looks like a completely different player, looks back to his goalkeeper of the year form that we got so accustomed to last year. Let's talk a little bit about some of those absences. You mentioned, obviously, we lose Patrick Agyemang. Idon Toklamati slides in, maybe even a better fit for Dean Smith's offense. Obviously, Agyemang, one of the greatest forwards in the history of the club, had a phenomenal season, had a good Gold Cup. But Idon Toklamati looks fantastic. We also, Pep Biel goes down, and Wilfried Zaha erupts in that offense. What do you think the team will look like when someone like Pep Biel returns? I know we're still a little ways away, but now we're thinking, do we get even better? Does he fit in this new side?
Yeah, I think he does. And I think not only does he fit on the pitch, he fits in terms of the competition. We talk a lot about competition breeding success, and there's a little thing that sometimes comes into play when you don't have competition where you may get complacent. And you talked about the Kalina resurgence. I truly believe that the couple of games that he was dropped and Bingham was allowed to play was almost like a wake-up call. Not necessarily like he needed one as a human being, but sometimes as a player, it's just a reminder that nothing is given. I think Pep Biel slots back in. They're still aiming for the timeline of Inter Miami. You mentioned Toklamati. Where he suits his system more is he's more of a mobile player. He's able to be connected. With Patrick Agyemang, it was always, let's kick the ball long. Let's hope for Patrick to run. I think with Ian Toklamati, you've seen him get involved in the build-up play more. You've seen him be able to use his feet more. He has an aerial. So impressed with that header. I love Toklamati, and I just think it's so important to note how many of these players were household names before they arrived at Charlotte FC. Not very many of them. That says to me that this club has done a really good job of recruiting and turning people into profitable players, which is an important part of this game that sometimes we forget about.
Right, and as much as I know it hurts the fans to see some of your favorites leave, it is, if the worst thing about your club is a reputation of developing players and sending them off to bigger and better things, I think in a league like the MLS, which has been yearning for that reputation for years, is a good place to be. Let's talk about our opponents now. New England Revolution having a very, very poor season. I think there's no way around it. When you have talented players like Carlos Heel and Leo Campagna, and they recently brought in U.S. men's national team goalkeeper Matt Turner, you have higher expectations. Right now, they're sitting close to bottom of the East. It looks rough, but this has all the makings of a trap game. What does Charlotte need to really look out for to make sure that they don't fall victim? Winning as many games as they have on the bat is very difficult. This is one of those ones that you could definitely see going either way, regardless of what we see on paper.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that New England has had 2 really bad seasons. Last season, they finished second bottom as well. So those fans have really had a lot of heartache. I think what's funny is so often when we talk about the challenges of going on the road, it's because of a hostile environment. I don't think Gillette Stadium will be anywhere near as hostile as we see Bank of America Stadium. Mm-hmm. Not many places are as hostile as the Bank to go and play. Let's be completely transparent.
Absolutely.
But history. New England beat Charlotte at Charlotte. And that was because they weren't clinical in their finishing. I asked Dean Smith today, Dean, when you look back at that game and you see that result, what do you feel about it? And he basically said, and I'm not going to repeat it because it's not a friendly word, but it pees him off. He's not happy about it because his side wasn't clinical. He said the biggest key of this game is to finish chances. I tend to agree with him. You have to be clinical in the moments. You can't rely on a 1-0 goal, because when you have players, you mentioned Hill, you mentioned Campana, both of them are capable for a moment of magic. And also, it's important to mention that the Revolution are full of confidence. Even though they have that terrible track record in terms of the entire season as a whole, they're coming off beating Columbus Crew. And anybody that follows MLS knows Columbus Crew are one of the most fascinating teams to watch. They play beautiful soccer. New England was able to go 2-0 up and end up winning 2-1. So I think not being complacent, finishing your chances, and making it number 8 in a row for a victory would be an incredible result for the Crown.
Absolutely, and I think I speak for everybody here in the Queen City when I say that would be fantastic. I mean, I think the city, and you've seen it firsthand, the city yearns for a team to be fantastic. And, we've done these segments almost every week now. 3 or 4 weeks ago, the concept of potentially finishing in the top 4, hosting a home playoff game, was so out of the realm of possibility. It took an absolute miracle. It took Wilfred Zaha playing towards his best. I mean, I think the whole city is galvanized behind this team. I want to ask you, because you have such a unique perspective, having watched the team for so long, you've seen so many different iterations of the team. It really feels like every year it has been almost a completely different club, despite having a lot of the same players. But you look at the DPs and all that, been so much turnover. Compare this to last year's team, the team before. What do you see going so right now?
The mentality. I think that there's always been a bit of a chip on the shoulder, but now they come with experience and understanding the moments. Obviously, there were leaders like Ashley Westwood, who's been a steady presence since he arrived at the club. But anytime you hear him speak, he's talking about what they've learned, about the ambitions. And I think there's a different level of belief. And that comes with players like Zaha in the locker room. I know that he's a diversive figure at times and is quite the character, but he is such a talented player that's playing his best soccer. When you have a player like that in the locker room, you're always believing. When you've got Christian Kalina performing every single game fantastically now since this run of form, you believe. So I think there's a difference in the mentality, but also the experience. You've got a manager in Dean Smith that came over, and MLS is a different animal. As someone that had to learn MLS as a foreigner coming over, it is so different. I know people think it's the same ball game. Yeah, everyone's kicking the ball. There's 11 players on each team, but there are so many differences in the terms of the nuances of the league, the nuances on the travel. So I think the combination of experience and belief and just understanding that level of confidence, even when they were going through that rocky form, you heard that they didn't take everything to heart. They didn't give up. There was that level of belief and quiet confidence in their team. And I think there's a quiet confidence that they're going to go even further than 4th in the table. They really believe, and Dean Smith said today, a successful season is winning something. And he still believes the Supporters' Shield, that number 1 spot, if they can pick up 3 points and other results going their way, starts to look of more of a possibility.
You know, we had Andrew Wiebe on the show last week, and he had an interesting take. He said that for Charlotte to make the top 4, he wanted them to win out. I have their schedule pulled up right here. And obviously we have New England. Then after that, looks like Miami, New York City, Montreal, D.C., Philadelphia. Now, Miami, Philadelphia, 2 difficult games. But there's an honest chance that the Crown could win out. What do you think about those chances? Obviously, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're speculating. Who knows what could happen? There's so much between now and October 18th. But looking at that schedule, what do you think?
Dean Smith would tell us we go 1 game at a time, right? But it's hard not to look ahead. I think you look at Montreal, you look at NYC, and you think those games absolutely winnable. I think that Inter Miami is hit or miss. I mean, it's a roller coaster with Inter Miami. It's whoever shows up, however the stars go, and what rolls in your favor. So that's always going to be a tough game. But Charlotte has beaten them before. It's not like they haven't beaten them, and they haven't beaten them without their stars. They've beaten them with Lionel Messi playing 90 minutes in a game. So they're going to have a lot of confidence going into that one. And for me, the longer this ball of confidence, this ball of win streak keeps on going, the more invincible you feel. Confidence is contagious. Winning is contagious. So if they pick up 3 points today, I think there's an even better chance of continuing to win out. And don't forget, they're continuing to strengthen their squad, bring in other players, bring in Pep Biel back from fitness. Who knows? Winning out would be tough. Remaining unbeaten for the remainder, I could see as more of a possibility.
Fantastic. Jessica Charman with the MLS. We seriously appreciate your time. Obviously, we have heard you for tons of seasons now. To get you on the show is especially awesome for those of us who have been watching for so long. We really appreciate it. We can't wait to hear you on the call Saturday night.
Thank you so much. Hopefully, I'll be calling goals. That's the most important thing, right?
You love Oklahoma. I don't care where they come from. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good one.